Hi, welcome back to my channel Feldenkrais Now. Today I want to do something very different. I don't want to do a classical Feldenkrais lesson today. I want us to talk about biomechanics, which are the laws of physics as they apply to the human body, and how by understanding them we can improve our mobility and our functionality. So I want to talk about a few things. First of all, the human body is inherently unstable. If you stand on your feet, you will notice that if somebody, think about the fact that somebody might want to come and push you from behind without you knowing it, you will find yourself falling very quickly. If you compare this to an animal on four legs, like a dog or a horse, this is much harder. Try to push a dog or a horse when it doesn't want to move, and it becomes much more difficult. So they have a lot more stability, also because their center of gravity is above the ground, in the middle of the abdomen, in the center of their four legs. Whereas the human being's center of gravity is just below the navel. So you have to think that we have this long, high, pretty heavy body, and our base of support are our feet. So it's a very small base of support compared to the height and the weight of the body. And as I said before, the center of gravity is just under your navel, and that would go to about S3. So the sacral vertebrae, the third sacral vertebrae. So if you go just below your navel, you can draw the line, and that will be approximately where your center of gravity is. Now, the human body, as I said in the beginning, is inherently unstable. This gives us a huge advantage. We can move in any direction very quickly. We can turn towards the back, we can run this way, we can change our mind, we can go somewhere. In other words, we're much more unstable, and so we are built for movement. The human body is made for movement. And now imagine, let's go back a few 100,000 years. Imagine you're a hunter-gatherer and you're somewhere in the jungle or in the steppe or wherever you want to imagine. You're walking around, maybe you can try to play this little game. You're walking around and you don't feel very safe. And maybe you're listening to sounds, maybe there's an animal out, maybe something is coming after you. How would you walk then? How would you walk? Would you perhaps bend your knees? Try and see what that does. Try and see what it does to stand like this with your feet together and just have your body shifting with your feet hip width apart. And now imagine you are threatened. Our body was built for survival, not just to sit in an office chair. So think about this. You're walking, you hear a noise. Are you lowering instinctively your center of gravity downward? Are you coming down a little bit? Are you crouching a little bit? Because then your energy can come up from the floor much more easily, and you can quickly run away or jump or go up on a tree or whatever it is that you need to do to survive. So if you ever heard or saw or have done even martial arts, this is used a lot in martial arts. We start to go down, we crouch, and then we have a lot of strength. Our core muscles are very strong to go up and to bring our center of gravity back up. So this is something to think about. Okay, so as I said, the human being's base of support is very small compared to an animal. This makes us unstable, but it also gives us a huge freedom of movement. And as I said, if you imagine a horse running fast, it's going to be difficult for the horse to run fast, stop, turn around, and run in another direction, whereas a human being can do it with great ease. So that's an interesting thing to think about as well. Now, even in standing, we can change our base of support. So let's try that. Let's do that together. So stand please with your feet hip distance apart, and start shifting your pelvis forward. So the pelvis is where your center of gravity is. You want to start shifting. See what happens. Do it very naturally, back and forth. So you might feel something happens in your feet, especially as you go back. Maybe your toes are lifting up a little bit, whatever. This is kind of individual. And see how your upper body, your head, your shoulders, your spine is reacting to this lack of equilibrium. Because as I'm standing now, my center of gravity, the line of gravity goes down between my feet. If I change the weight of my body, I come into a disequilibrium, automatically my body will compensate. I'm still I'm still centering myself above my feet this way. If I don't do that, I will fall. The body automatically adapts to this change. So think about it. I take my pelvis forward and my head goes back. I take my pelvis back, my head comes forward. Try not to do it. You'll see that if I take my pelvis forward and I don't adjust in the body, I will fall. So this is what your body is constantly looking for, equilibrium, and it's using the skeleton and the musculature to do that. Okay, so let's look at another base of support. I want to just give a brief introduction into what the base of support for the body can be. So let's suppose now I'm coming on my knees, and not only am I on my knees, I'm going to stand one leg. So think about the amount of freedom of movement you have in this position. It's not something you do every day, but I can still move around. I still have quite a bit of freedom, and my base of support is relatively small. So this is the trade-off I was talking about. We are less comfortable when our base of support is smaller, but we have more movement. Okay, I can do this with the other leg, of course. You might sense that you can play around with this a little bit. See if you can go anywhere with that, what you could reach for, what you can do. So as you can see, you have some freedom of movement here. Now, I'm going to make my base of support a little bit bigger. So I'm a bit more stable now. And now I try to move my pelvis, right? So now, it's limited. You'll feel it if you try this, and I think it can be interesting to try this out. Yeah, I can move my arms, more stable, more stability, less freedom of movement. And of course, if you sit, again, oh, this is so comfortable. We can sit for hours, even a side sitting like that. Now less gravity is affecting my body. To hold myself up, I might put my hand on the side. And yes, I can still move, but as you can see very clearly, the movement is reduced. The ability to move is reduced. Unless I lift up my pelvis, I can't really go anywhere. And then, of course, the next stage is to lie completely on the floor. So this is extremely comfortable. My limbs don't have to deal with gravity anymore. I don't have to think about anything. This is how we sleep, obviously. However, I'm more vulnerable. Again, if we think back to prehistory, to being attacked, I have less movement. Even if I move my pelvis now, there's not many places I can go. And very importantly, if I do want to go somewhere very quickly, I have to use a lot of muscles. I have to use a lot of force and a lot of energy to get from this comfortable place with a huge base of support to a place where I can move with freedom. So please come back up to standing. Just stand for a moment. And so I wanted to explain these things to you because I think it's important to understand that the price of comfort is less movement. It's a trade-off, it's not a price. That's perhaps wrongly expressed. So you have that trade-off. And we want to maintain our ability to transition from position to position. For example, from sitting to standing. There's a video in my video library, how to come from sitting to standing with ease. So you can, again, the laws of biomechanics and physics are affecting your body. And it's interesting to know how you can do it more easily. So that's one thing. There's another video called Better Sitting in 10 Minutes that shows you the principle of biomechanics as they apply to you when you're sitting on a chair. So this is just for you to help you to understand how these laws of physics affect us and how you can do your best in understanding them and regaining some of the ease of movement. So thank you for joining me again, and see you next time. Bye.